I was born in an old but beautiful house at the edge of the city. It was not just a building, it was my father's dream, my mother's pride, and my childhood home. The house had wide windows, a small garden, and walls that carried the memories of laughter, tears, and long evenings. After my parents passed away, the house became my greatest responsibility and my strongest emotional support. I lived there alone, managing a small job at a private school and trying to keep life simple. That was when I met Adil. He came into my life quietly, like a gentle breeze. We met at a friend's gathering, and he seemed polite, well-spoken, and caring. He listened carefully when I talked and never interrupted. He asked about my work, my hobbies, and my dreams. Unlike others, he did not rush or pretend to be someone else. At least, that was what I believed. Over time, our meetings became frequent. He would call every evening, asking about my day. Sometimes he brought small gifts, like books or flowers, nothing expensive but thoughtful. He said he admired my independence and respected my values. Slowly, my heart opened to him. When I told him about my house, his eyes lit up with interest. He asked many questions: how old it was, who owned it, and whether it was fully in my name. I thought he was just curious. After all, the house was a big part of my life. I answered honestly, never imagining that those details mattered more to him than I did. After 1 year of knowing each other, he spoke about marriage. His words were soft and convincing. He said he wanted a peaceful life, a loving wife, and a stable home. He promised support, respect, and partnership. I was nervous but hopeful. Marriage is never easy, but I believed trust could make it strong. My relatives were cautious. They asked questions about his job and family background. Adil said he worked in business, though he often avoided details. He claimed his income changed from month to month. I defended him, saying success takes time. Looking back, I realize how blind love can make a person. We got married in a simple ceremony. I moved into my own house with him, believing it would now be our home. At first, everything felt normal. He was kind, helped around the house, and spoke gently. Neighbors admired us, and relatives said I was lucky. But slowly, small changes appeared. He started talking more about the house than about us. He suggested renovations, selling old furniture, and even renting part of the property. When I hesitated, he became quiet and distant. He would say, "I am just thinking about our future," but his tone felt cold. He rarely asked about my feelings anymore. Conversations became practical, almost business-like. Love was replaced by planning, calculations, and arguments over ownership and expenses. If I disagreed, he accused me of not trusting him. One evening, I noticed some documents on the table. They were related to property transfer. When I asked him about them, he laughed and said they were only samples, nothing serious. I wanted to believe him, but a strange fear settled in my heart. I also noticed he often spoke to people on the phone in hushed voices. When I entered the room, he would stop talking or leave. Once, I heard him mention my house while speaking to someone, saying, "Everything will be settled soon." That sentence echoed in my mind for days. Despite all this, I stayed silent. I told myself marriage needs patience. Maybe he was stressed. Maybe I was overthinking. I continued to cook, clean, and work, hoping things would improve. But deep inside, I felt alone in my own home. The house that once felt warm now felt heavy. The walls seemed to listen, the rooms seemed to judge. At night, I lay awake, wondering when love turned into suspicion. I remembered the early days, his gentle voice, his promises. Were they real, or just words spoken to reach something he wanted? One day, I visited my aunt. She looked at me carefully and said I seemed tired. When I shared a little about my worries, she advised me to be careful and protect what was mine. Her words were not harsh, but they were honest. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider a painful possibility. What if he did not marry me for love? What if the house was the reason? That thought scared me, but it also gave me strength. I decided to observe quietly, to listen more carefully, and to protect myself. I stopped sharing financial details and kept important papers locked away. I watched his reactions. When he realized I was no longer easily agreeing, his behavior changed. He became impatient and angry. His mask was slowly falling, and I could see a side of him I had never known. The days after my realization were heavy with silence. The house felt different, as if it was waiting for something to happen. I watched Adil closely now, noticing every change in his tone, every movement of his eyes. Once, I had looked at him with love. Now, I looked with awareness. One afternoon, I returned home earlier than usual. As I opened the door quietly, I heard voices coming from the living room. Adil was speaking to someone on the phone. His voice was low but urgent. I stopped near the door, my heart beating fast. "She will agree," he said. "It's only a matter of time. Once the papers are done, everything will be easier." I felt cold all over. He did not notice me. I stepped back slowly and went into the kitchen, pretending I had just arrived. When he saw me, he ended the call quickly and smiled, but his smile did not reach his eyes. That night, I could not sleep. His words repeated in my mind. I knew then that my doubts were not imagination. Something was very wrong. The next morning, I decided to act carefully. I contacted a lawyer through a trusted friend. I did not explain everything, but I asked about property rights after marriage. The lawyer's words were calm but firm. He told me to protect my documents, avoid signing anything without legal advice, and stay alert. I felt both scared and relieved. Scared because the truth was painful, and relieved because I was no longer helpless. Adil noticed my change. I was quieter, more distant. I stopped agreeing to his plans. When he talked about selling part of the house, I said no clearly. His reaction was sharp. He accused me of being selfish and ungrateful. He said marriage meant sharing everything. I looked at him and said something I had never said before. I told him trust could not be forced. He stared at me as if he was seeing a stranger. From that day, his kindness disappeared. He stopped pretending. His words became harsh, and his patience vanished. Small disagreements turned into big arguments. He reminded me often that he was my husband and had rights. I reminded him quietly that respect was also a right. One evening, the truth finally came out. We were arguing again, this time about a document he wanted me to sign. He said it was for family security. I refused without reading it. His face changed completely. Anger, frustration, and disappointment mixed together. "You think I married you for love?" he shouted. "Do you know how hard life is without money or property?" The room went silent. His words fell like stones. He continued, speaking faster, louder. He talked about his debts, his failed business, and how he saw my house as a solution. He said he deserved stability, that marriage was a partnership, and that I should understand his situation. I listened quietly, tears in my eyes but strength in my heart. Every word confirmed what I had feared. When he finished, I spoke calmly. I told him marriage built on lies could never survive. I told him love cannot grow where greed lives. My voice shook, but my decision did not. That night, I locked myself in my room. I cried, not because I lost him, but because I lost the dream I once believed in. The man I loved never truly existed. He was only a role played for a purpose. The next few weeks were difficult. We lived in the same house but as strangers. He tried to change his behavior when he realized he could not control me. He apologized, promised to change, and spoke of love again. But I had learned a hard lesson. Words without honesty mean nothing. With legal support and family help, I took steps to protect myself and my property. I informed him clearly that I would not transfer ownership or sign any papers. When he understood that his plans had failed, he became bitter. One morning, he left the house without saying goodbye. He took his clothes and personal items. He did not look back. I stood by the window and watched him walk away. I felt pain, but also freedom. After he left, the house slowly returned to life. I cleaned every room, opened the windows, and let fresh air enter. It felt like breathing again after being underwater for too long. I learned many things from this experience. I learned that love should never make you blind to reality. I learned that trust must be earned, not demanded. Most importantly, I learned my own strength. The house remained mine, not just legally, but emotionally. It was no longer a prize someone could take from me. It was my shelter, my past, and my future. Sometimes, I still remember the woman I was before marriage, hopeful, innocent, trusting. I do not hate her. She loved sincerely. But now, I am stronger, wiser, and more careful. My story is not about loss. It is about survival. It is about standing up when the truth hurts. And it is about understanding that real love never comes with hidden conditions.